Oh, hey there! So I talk a lot about nostalgia on this channel. Whether it's in the form of my Java series, revisiting older games that I grew up with or just played during various stages of my life, or when I talked about the literal effects that nostalgia has on our thoughts on video games. It's something that I don't think I'll ever really get away from, because I, like many of you, am constantly trying to relive or recapture that magic that I once felt when I first played these games. Prior to making my own videos on YouTube, I would watch a ton of various creators talking about games that I really enjoy. Games that I already know every single thing about, but I would watch them anyway, almost as a way to vicariously experience the game for the first time through somebody else's videos. In fact, I still do this. I recently watched King K's video on the Golden Sun series, which as some of you may know, I covered the first game a couple years back. And yes, I know, I still need to do my follow-up video. Whoops. It was a fun watch, because while I played those games when they first came out, it was actually King K's first journey through them. So to hear his perspective, that of someone playing the game for the first time nearly 25 years after they came out, was fascinating. It really is worth watching, so I'll spare you the summary and just link to it down below and you can watch it after this. The thing is, that video suddenly got me feeling very nostalgic about my time with Golden Sun and its sequel, The Lost Age. It made me want to play them again, but I started questioning whether I was nostalgic for the games themselves or how I remember those games. The memory is tied to my first time playing those games, the age I was, the life I was living back when I played those games, the simpler times, the good old days, etc. And honestly, it's probably a mixture of both. I still have fun with the Golden Sun games, but of course, there will never be that first experience ever again. And that's true with every game that I've ever played or ever will play. Once you experience it, that's it. Over the past decade or so, we've seen an influx in remakes, remasters, and re-releases of popular games, all of which are trying to capitalize on those feelings we first had when we initially played those games. Depending on who is remaking the game, we've seen countless methods as to how they're created. Some are much more faithful to the source material, playing similarly to the original while still being fresh, such as the GameCube remake of Resident Evil, or the Link's Awakening remake on the Switch, while others deviate pretty wildly, even going as far as to nearly change the genre of the game altogether, such as the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy, or ironically, the Resident Evil 2 remake. When I played these remakes, at no point in time did I get the same nostalgic feeling for the originals, because to me, whether they were super faithful or not, they still felt like brand new games. In fact, nowadays, I can find myself getting nostalgic for both my first time playing Resident Evil 2 and my first time playing Resident Evil 2 Remake. I enjoyed playing FF7 Remake and Rebirth, but at no point in time did I ever feel like they were scratching that nostalgic Final Fantasy VII itch for me, and was sometimes just wishing I'd been playing the original instead. That's not to say I disliked them, because I did have fun, but they didn't fill that FF7 hole per se. So what's the solution here? Is there a solution? Hell, is there even a problem? For all intents and purposes, I don't think chasing after nostalgia is all that problematic, as long as you don't find yourself only ever looking backwards. That being said, the past can be comforting. There is a comfort in familiarity. It's easy to look back with rose-tinted glasses and think about how good things were because we're only ever remembering the good. When I think back to my time with Golden Sun, my mind is remembering how happy that game made me in 2001. I think about all the amazing games that came out that year. Final Fantasy X, Devil May Cry, Pokemon Crystal, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Metal Gear Solid 2, Grand Theft Auto 3, Sonic Adventure 2. I could go on, but you get the point. It's easy to look back at all that and think about the good old days. But you know what I'm conveniently leaving out? What my mind and my memory are conveniently leaving out? The fact that I was like 14 or 15 back then. I was an awkward early teenager, spending a lot of my time on various video game themed message boards and writing a lot of angsty entries on LiveJournal about how much I hated having to go to school. I was stressing out over what would amount to be nothing problems, but in the eyes of a teenager were huge issues. I just wanted to hurry and grow up so I could do whatever I wanted, as many kids and teenagers tend to assume adult life is like. That's not to say I was super melodramatic or anything, but the point is that while I was playing those games, I didn't realize how good things really were. I was able to spend countless hours talking about video games with my friends on AIM and Yahoo Messenger, all of whom I met on message boards called things like the Moogle Cavern and Sonic Fan Games HQ. I had more time to make little games and click and create, or mess around with ROMs and hex editors just to see what would happen. Honestly, I could pretty much do whatever I wanted, but I don't think I ever realized that either. I've got this tendency to imprint certain moments of my life onto games. So much so that when I play those games again, it makes me think about those points in time. I talked about this briefly a few years back in my holiday games video, where I said that for whatever reason, Christmas time makes me want to play games like Mario Odyssey, Mega Man X4, and Majora's Mask, because those were all games that I received and played during that time of the year, so my brain has decided to connect those games to that point in time. That means that when December comes along, I want to play those games, or if I start playing those games at some other point in time in the year, I start thinking about Christmas. It probably sounds weird, but I'm sure I'm not the only person who does this. When you expand upon that further, I think that's what gets me so into the idea of revisiting games like Golden Sun, because it came out in what my mind now thinks of as some sort of halcyon day. But given enough time, any moment from the past can be viewed as some sort of halcyon day, due to that whole not remembering the small day-to-day life details thing, and instead just focusing on those big, huge, happy moments. So going back to the solution to this non-existent problem, I want to present to you 2 games. Now keep in mind, these are my solutions, and they might not be yours, but I'll explain what the hell I'm talking about after I talk about these games. The first is the recently released Clair Obscur Expedition 33, but don't worry, I'm not going to spoil literally any story stuff about this game, because as of this video's release, it's still pretty fresh. I just want to talk about some of the mechanics. I bought this game on a whim, having randomly pre-ordered it back in October of 2024. I don't even remember why I pre-ordered it. I just kind of stumbled across it on Amazon and decided why not and snagged it. I've done this before with games like Monster Boy and was pleasantly surprised, and I'm happy to say that with Expedition 33, that still holds true. You see, this is a turn-based RPG, which to a lot of people might feel dated, but it also has a lot of elements that keep it fresh as well. It doesn't feel like I'm playing a rehashed Final Fantasy X, and yet there are certain elements in it that sort of scratch that nostalgic itch for me. This is a game that lets you grind on the same enemies for as long as you want, without giving you diminishing returns once you outlevel whatever it is you're fighting. That's something that you don't see in modern turn-based RPGs nowadays, but was pretty commonplace back in the 90s and 2000s, and I love that. I love being able to choose to just sit in one area and fight the same stupid enemy until I get overpowered, without the game punishing me for doing so. And yet on the other hand, it has some fresh new ideas such as Pictos, which are basically accessories with unique skills and stats tied to them. Only one character can equip a Picto at a time, but once you fight 4 battles while wearing that Picto, you'll master it, allowing all characters to equip the abilities of that Picto at the cost of skill points. Each character can wear 3 Pictos at a time, while also equipping a whole multitude of skills from other mastered Pictos, as long as you have the skill points to do so, which can be increased through various other means. It's a simple yet unique and fresh idea that really lets Expedition 33 stand on its own, but still retains that classic feeling. Now the second game I want to talk about isn't even out yet, but it's one I discovered years ago, and I cannot wait for it to be released. The Transylvanian adventure of Simon Quest. Now on the surface, if you were to just give this an extremely quick glance, you might think that this is just some sort of Castlevania game, but believe me when I say that it's very much its own thing. This game is made by a developer named Programmancer, who, in his own words, makes pixel games that harken back to the late 80s and early 90s, such as Prison City, which was released back in 2023. You see, Simon Quest, while clearly being a parody of Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, is still very much its own game with its own identity. It looks and feels like a classic Castlevania, yet has a modern touch to it that's a breath of fresh air. You're still whipping enemies, but it's quite a bit faster than your standard classic Castlevania game. Your jumps still have a specific arc to them, and yet they don't feel nearly as weighty. Then there's the fact that you can do backflips, slide kicks, whip swings, and more, and you quickly realize that it feels a lot more modern than a game from 1986. It's a title that is jam-packed full of references to other games, and even movies that Programmancer enjoys, and it very much wears its inspirations on its sleeve. To me, the Transylvanian adventure of Simon Quest is sort of like what your memory thinks a classic Castlevania is. Oftentimes when we think about things from the past, we have a tendency to misremember them, ignoring or overlooking flaws and the like. We might view those movies, moments, games, whatever, in a mostly positive light, so then when we finally do go back and re-experience it, it might not live up to what our memory of it was. Similar to when we hype ourselves up over something brand new that we haven't even experienced yet, and it doesn't meet our expectations. So basically, retroactive hype. The reason I talked about those two games in specific is because I really do view them as the answer to this non-existent problem I've been rambling about. New, fresh games, not re-releases, not remakes, not remasters, but new games that somehow manage to scratch that nostalgic itch and make me feel like I did when I first played Final Fantasy X or Castlevania II Simon's Quest. Dark Souls to Lies of P, Hollow Knight to Crowsworn, just to name two more. They all somehow exist as this perfect blend of something nostalgic and something fresh. I don't find myself constantly comparing them to the games that these clearly took inspiration from and wishing I was playing those games instead. I want to be playing Clair, Obscur, Expedition 33. I want to be playing the Transylvanian adventure of Simon's Quest, and I can't believe that I picked the longest possible video game titles to use as my two examples for this whole video. But regardless, I think that these are the types of games that we need more of. Obviously, there's a bit of nuance here. It's not black and white. I don't want people coming away from this video thinking that I hate remakes or that older games aren't always as good as we remember them being. I mean, I tend to replay the first 3 Castlevania games like multiple times a year. I even replay Final Fantasy X usually once every couple of years, so I have a pretty solid memory of what to expect when I go back to those games. However, there are plenty of people who have played Final Fantasy X one time ever, or Castlevania II Simon's Quest one time ever, have fond memories of them, but if they went back and replayed them now, they might find them lacking. Therefore, games like Expedition 33 or Simon Quest would be perfect for them. All I'm trying to say is that if you're gonna profit off of my nostalgia, give me something new while doing so. Hey Programmancer, let me be the voiceover for the next Simon Quest trailer.